Good morning. Welcome to the UU Church of Tullahoma. I would like to welcome those who showed up in person, those of you who are on Zoom, and those of you who are live streaming with us. Our opening reading. First we do the lighting of the chalice. And Katie, would you take the chalice? We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, and celebration of the life we share together. And I'd like to say, come into the circle of love and justice, come into the community of mercy, holiness, and health. Come and you shall know peace and joy. Announcements. Due to Doug and Jancy having health concerns with their parents, Zen will be canceled until September. So if you're interested in attending Zen, wait until September and then we'll get you some more information. PFLAG meets, I always forget, on the Monday. Second Monday of the month here at 6 p.m.
I think so.
At 6 p.m. Are there any other announcements? Do we have any announcements from Zoom? Rick?
Yeah, my usual Wednesday discussion group, I remind everyone we're on hiatus. Probably really until the middle of July, due to travel on behalf of Chuck and Andy, who completed another one of their odysseys. They say they've now visited all 50 states, I believe. That's unbelievable in about 2 years. Anyway, we're going to Zoom and we'll probably be talking about artificial intelligence, which is a hot topic, and I hope everyone will join us on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. when we do the thank you.
Gene?
Aaron's not here this morning because he's in Knoxville, but he's also going to visit a Unitarian church while he's there. So.
Oh, great. Tom?
Second Thursday here, 6 o'clock for the writing group.
Okay.
And I remind everybody there's books floating around in here, and I've got some more, it turns out. So.
There's one called Caring of the Soul that I know Rosanna said she really liked. I tried reading it, I couldn't get it. maybe somebody else might.
So that is out there.
I think it's still out there, yeah. Mm-hmm. Any other announcements? Okay, our reading of the day. About 10 years ago, when we were living in Shelbyville, you know those, they call them cellar spiders, but they're little tiny spiders and they live in your bathroom. And one day, a little tiny baby came down and was sorting while I was in there. And I thought, that's cute. Little tiny baby. Oh, that's so cute. Then there were like 50 of them, and then 60. And then I kind of freaked a little bit. And I got the vacuum cleaner. And I cried all day because I had killed some of Charlotte's babies, And so this is a poem. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Nikki Giovanni. She is a black poet. She lives in Knoxville. But this is a poem called Allowables. And it has so much more than just spiders, but I was okay with one or two, but boy, too many, I got scared. And this is a poem, Allowables. I killed a spider, not a murderous brown recluse, nor even a black widow. And if the truth were told, this was only a small, sort of papery spider who should have run, but when I picked up the book, but she didn't, and she scared me, and I smashed her. I don't think I'm allowed to kill something because I'm frightened. And now I would like to turn it over to our speaker, Katie.
morning, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Katie, and my pronouns are they, them. Today I'll be talking about gender identity and pronouns. This is part one of a two-part talk on gender and sexuality, and I hope that by the end everyone has a better idea of what gender identity and labels actually are. So before I start throwing out different terms and such, I want everyone to take a moment. Close your eyes and think deeply. How do you know you are the gender you identify as? Is it a label that was applied to you when you were born and you just never questioned it? Is it because you outwardly look feminine or masculine and you just go with it? Have you ever stopped to think about what it means to be a man or a woman? Okay, you can open your eyes. For those who might say, well, it's a biological thing. You have XX or XY chromosomes, and that's what defines you as a man or a woman. So I want you to consider this. First of all, in a sexual species, you can have females be XX and males be X. Insects. You can have females be ZW and males be ZZ. That's for birds. You can have females be females because they developed in a warm environment, and males be males because they developed in a cool environment, which is the case with reptiles. You can have females be females because they lost a penis sword fighting contest, some flatworms. You can have males be males because they were born female but changed sexes because the only male in their group died, parrotfish and clownfish. You can have males look and act like females because they're trying to get close enough to actual females to mate with them, cuttlefish, bluegills, and others. Or you can be one of thousands of sexes, slime mold, some mushrooms. Oh, did you mean humans? Okay, then you can be male because you were born female, but you have 5-alpha reductase deficiency, and so you grew a penis at age 12. You can be female because you have an X and a Y chromosome, but you're insensitive to androgens, and so you have a female body. You can be a female because you have an X and a Y chromosome, but your Y is missing the SRY gene, and so you have a female body. Or you can be a male because you have 2 X chromosomes, but one of your X's has an SRY gene, and so you have a male body. You can be a male because you have 2 X chromosomes, but also a Y. You can be female because you have only 1 X chromosome at all. And you can be a male because you have 2 X chromosomes, but your heart and your brain are male, and vice versa. Don't use science to justify your bigotry. The world is too weird for that shit. Okay, so now to get to the point of this talk. I'm sure many have heard different terms being thrown around. Cisgender, transgender, trans men, and trans women. But what does it all mean? And what's all this sudden outcry about pronouns? I know it can be confusing, so I'll try to explain it in an easy to understand way. I do wish to say this is not an all-encompassing list. There are as many gender identities out there as there are people. I'm here today to help get you started on the path to learning more, and at the very least have a semi-stable idea of what the LGBTQIA community is talking about. So to start off, what is gender identity? Dictionary defines it as a person's innate sense of their gender. Okay, so what's gender? Again, we turn to the dictionary where we find the definition stating the male sex or the female sex, especially when considered with reference to social and cultural differences rather than biological ones, or one of a range of other identities that do not correspond to established ideas of male and female. Wikipedia says gender includes the social, psychological, cultural, and behavioral aspects of being a man, woman, or other gender identity. Depending on the context, this may include sex-based social structures and gender expression. The Human Rights Campaign gives the definition of one's innermost concept of self as male, female, a blend of both, or neither, how individuals perceive themselves and what they call themselves. One's gender identity can be the same or different from their sex assigned at birth. So what does this mean? Well, in short, gender is what you feel like, while sex is what your anatomy is. For those who feel the sex assigned to them at birth matches what they feel like, they may not question what it means to be male or female. But for many of us, there's always been that question of, what does it mean? So here's where we start getting into what the different gender identities are, what they mean, and how they may be expressed. So we'll start with cisgender. Cis being Latin, meaning on the side of, and cisgender basically comes down to alignment of the gender identity with assigned sex. Basically, this just means that when you were born, the doctor looked at you and your genitals and declared you're male or female, and as you grew up, you stuck with that label. There's nothing wrong or hateful about aligning yourself with the gender you were assigned at birth, and it doesn't mean you're only interested in stereotypical things associated with that gender, such as an avid fascination with cars and sports if you're male, or dolls and tea parties and swooshy dresses if you're female. Cisgender is seen as the normal state of being against which all other gender identities are measured. So next up is transgender. Trans being the Latin antonym to cis and meaning across from or on the other side of. If you're transgender, you identify as a gender different from the one you were assigned at birth. This term is also an umbrella for many of the other gender identities I'll be talking about. Someone who's trans may choose to use hormone therapy to help them with their body getting more aligned with what their brain thinks it should be, may opt to have surgery, dress more in a fashion that aligns with their identity, and may start using different pronouns than they used to. But some trans folk also opt not to change their hormones or undergo surgery for a variety of reasons. This does not make them any less valid or any less trans. A lesser heard term is two-spirit. This is a modern English term that an indigenous person may identify as, that comes from the traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples of Canada, Turtle Island, North America. It can mean a person who walks between genders, one who carries the gifts of both female and male genders, or who is gender unique, not specific to any one gender. Non-binary is a term for someone who does not identify as male or female, or solely as one of those genders. It's also a bit of an umbrella term for identities that fall outside the male-female binary. This is the term that I identify as, and for me, sometimes I feel male, sometimes I feel female, but the vast majority of the time I just feel human. I'm not masculine or feminine, I'm just a human. Falling under this umbrella is the term genderqueer. Someone may identify as genderqueer if their gender identity is neither male nor female, is between or even beyond genders, or some combination of genders. It can be perceived as being related to or a reaction to the social construct of gender, gender stereotypes, and the gender binary system. You might also say gender fluid, is those who use this identity don't see gender as a singular, immutable construct, but rather something loose and changeable. Agender are those who identify as having no gender or gender identity, not male or female, just human. Bigender people have two gender identities and behaviors. This is understood to mean that one identifies as being simultaneously male and female, or moving back and forth between masculine gender expression and female gender expression. This differs from being gender fluid, as those who are gender fluid may not go back and forth between any fixed gender identities and may experience a vast spectrum of identities over time. Have you ever felt like you were mostly one gender, but also felt at least a little bit like another gender? This term would be demigender. So if you're a demi-man or demi-boy, you would mostly identify as being male, but also feel you have some aspects of another gender, whether that's female, third gender, or just simply agender. Xenogender is an umbrella term for gender identities that are described with terms outside standard Sorry. Let me start that sentence again. Xenogender is an umbrella term for gender identities that are described with terms outside standard human understanding of gender, often described metaphorically in relation to animals, plants, objects, or sensory characteristics rather than just male or female. Intersex is another term that comes up. Some folks may have heard this term as being hermaphrodite, but nowadays that term has a lot of stigma. Someone who's intersex may have anatomical or phenotypical ambiguities to their sex. This could be someone who was assigned female at birth due to having a vagina and by all appearances be female, but chromosomally they're male, or be chromosomally ambiguous. They could be someone who all through their childhood, they and their family and doctors all thought they were female, but then puberty hits and they do not develop typically female secondary sex characteristics. While being intersex is different from being trans, they've been welcomed into the community due to facing shared oppression. Many intersex people who were born with ambiguous sex characteristics would end up getting assigned a sex and even have surgery performed to make their genitals match the assigned sex while they're still infants. Many who have a gender identity that is different than the one assigned at birth have almost always known they were different, even if they didn't understand the finer points of what that means. Speaking from my own experience, I had realizations many times over the course of my life that I was not necessarily female. Sure, bodily I presented as female. I took part in many things that would culturally define me as female, wanting to wear makeup, playing with dolls, wearing feminine clothing, and so on. But it never quite felt 100% right to me. I remember once when I was really young, maybe 6 years old, my mom said for all the males in the house to gather up the garbage and take it out. So as my dad and my two brothers are trooping through the house with the garbage bags, one of my brothers jokingly says, "Well, come on, help us out." And I cry out, "But I'm not a female!" and ran to my room crying. In middle school, a friend had to bribe me to wear skirts by promising to pay me 50 cents any time I wore a skirt. And I always hated it because, you can't play football in a skirt. As a teen, my foster mom once made reference to the fact that I acted more feminine when I wore dresses or skirts. But despite playing with dolls or wearing dresses, it never felt right for me to be called a girl. I also liked playing in the mud, wrestling with my brothers, playing rough in sports, and wearing what's typically considered boys' clothes. When I was in my 20s, an online friend came out as trans, and he posted about his thoughts and emotions leading up to his realization. And as I read through his post, I basically had an epiphany. It isn't normal to question what it means to be a girl. It's not normal to have dreams where you're the opposite gender or no gender at all. But the term trans didn't fit me because sometimes I do feel like I'm the gender I was assigned at birth. And so I did a bit more digging and came across the terms genderqueer and gender fluid and said, okay, yeah, this kind of fits the description of how I feel. But the terms just didn't quite feel right. Like a shirt that should be your size, but it fits a bit awkwardly in the armpits. A few years later, I came across the term non-binary and I was like, yes, this is it. This is the term that fits me. Like the softest and most comfortable pajamas on earth, non-binary, or NB, feels just right. So now that I've talked about many of the gender identities you may come across, the next question is, how do we refer to someone? If Tony wanted to talk about me to Carrie, how should he refer to me? Just call me Katie all the time? That becomes awkward quickly. Katie is going out of town and won't be at church, so Katie needs someone to watch Katie's cats and gather Katie's mail. Instead, this is where pronouns come in. Everyone has pronouns they use to refer to themselves, typically she, her, and he, him. But there are other pronouns out there. I know everyone's heard the discussion on they, them pronouns and the arguments that it is grammatically incorrect to use they for a single person. However, this is false, as they, them has been used by Jane Austen and William Shakespeare in their literary works long before this discussion of gender identity came up. And I'm sure you yourself have used they, them pronouns when referring to someone else without even thinking about it. Someone left their coffee cup in the sanctuary. Do you know if they'll come back for it? But what if I told you there are still more pronouns someone may choose to use? Neopronouns are newer pronouns created by the trans, non-binary, and intersex communities to speak to their experiences with gender. Some of the most common are sie, them, zir, they, fair, and thon, thons. So how might one use these in a sentence? Cloud told me Z took their dog to the dog park. I saw a shadow today and Faye were wearing cool leggings. I told Fair that Faye looked really comfortable. Thon brought some ibuprofen himself. If I get a headache, I'll ask for some of Thon's. Some people will use a combination, such as she, they, him, or even any, all, depending on how they wish to be addressed. Think of yourself. Costa, what are your pronouns?
She, her.
How would you feel if, no matter what, someone used the wrong pronoun when referring to you, even when you repeatedly corrected them? Using a person's pronouns can literally be life-saving. Studies show correctly using a person's pronouns can reduce the risk of depression and suicide. It's a small thing you can do to show the person you're talking to that you're a safe person to be themselves with, and is the most basic show of respect you can give to someone. And to close, I'm gonna read a poem simply titled Gender. I look into the mirror and frown at what I see. The person looking back can't possibly be me. I look at some pictures. How can this be so? The person pictured here is someone I don't know. I stand in the shower, my eyes closed very tight, so I do not see what's standing there beneath the harsh cold light. The image that I have when I picture my own self, tall or thinner, not some demented elf. The picture that I have has far, far lesser curves, and bits I know are missing. It's getting on my nerves. Sometimes I like to play it up and dress to suit my body, make myself look pretty. Some might call a hottie. Other times it's neither one. My shape, it matters not. I am but a human. This form is all I've got. So many times I wish that I could shift. The image everyone else can see would be my greatest gift. When I wake up, my brain a boy, how I so wish I could show the world outside my head the form I would employ. With everything just right, no pieces out of place, nothing that is missing in the image that I face. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. I appreciate that, and it makes me think of somebody who's not here with us today, who I was particularly close to, which was Courtney Parsons. And, anyway, thank you for that. Closing statement. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. And deep peace of infinite peace to you. If you will all stand as we are willing and able, we'll sing hymn 414. Somebody started off with that for me.
As we leave this friendly place, love give light to every face. May the kindness which we learn light our hearts till we return.
Go in peace, and thank you for being here, all of you.